When people imagine the fall of Rome, they picture flames, barbarians at the gates, and the sudden collapse of civilization. But in reality, events are rarely so simple and dramatic. History rarely falls in a single night. It fades, stone by stone, law by law, year by year, until one day people wake to find the old world quietly gone. Our story follows one man, a baker's son named Gaius, born in 458 AD on the Aventine Hill. He lived an ordinary life in extraordinary times, through the last flicker of the Western Roman Empire, through the rule of Odoacer and Theodoric, and into the dawn of medieval Europe. This man did not exist in reality, of course, but the point of this video is that thousands of men like him did. While the perspectives, thoughts, and lived experiences of those real men are lost to time, we can get an idea of their experiences by constructing historical models just such as this one. Through the eyes of the fictional Gaius, we can see how the empire's fall was not just a political event, but the transformation of an entire way of life. This is Rome's ending, not told by generals or emperors, but by those who endured it. Let us begin. In the late summer of the year 476, Gaius was 18 when word spread that Odoacer's army had entered Italy. The Emperor Romulus Augustulus, barely older than Gaius himself, had been forced to abdicate. The Senate declared the Western Empire dissolved, its authority handed over to the Emperor in Constantinople. In Rome, there was confusion, not chaos. The people had lived through too many coups to panic. But beneath the calm, fear rippled through the streets. Gaius stood among the crowd near the Forum, watching as Odoacer's men, tall, pale, foreign, marched through the old heart of the city. They wore Roman armor, but their language was alien. The marble columns, blackened and cracked, seemed to lean inward, listening. No fire burned that day, no sack, no slaughter. Rome's end was quieter than its legends foretold. The banners of the legions had vanished, replaced by the insignia of the barbarian general who now ruled Italy in the name of the Eastern Emperor. That evening, Gaius returned to his family's bakery. The ovens glowed faintly, the loaves smaller than before. Grain shipments from Africa had stopped long ago. His mother murmured that Rome had fallen before and risen again. But even then, Gaius sensed something final in the silence that followed. By the following year, Rome remained intact, though diminished. The great palaces still stood, their gardens unkempt, their owners vanished. The Senate still met, but its speeches echoed through half-empty halls. Gaius had inherited the family bakery. The days were long, the flour coarse, the customers fewer. Gone were the proud officers who once paid in solidus and denarius. Now came soldiers of Odoacer's new order, trading strange coins stamped with unfamiliar faces. Life continued, though the grandeur had gone. The aqueducts, neglected and crumbling, sometimes ran dry. The baths were closed. Even the fountains sputtered like dying lungs. Still, there was peace of a kind. Odoacer's men enforced order, and taxes lightened as imperial bureaucracy withered away. Some citizens welcomed this, whispering that life was easier without the endless demands of the empire. Gaius's sister married a clerk serving Odoacer's administration, a small act of survival in a city learning to bow rather than break. On evenings, Gaius would walk through the Forum. The once bustling heart of the world lay still, pigeons nesting in the marble folds of forgotten gods. The empire had ended not with fire, but with fatigue, and Rome was learning what it meant to live without power. "10 years later, the scars of neglect were plain. The new rulers were not as meticulous about urban maintenance as were the old. Grass crept through the paving stones. The Colosseum stood empty, its silence deeper than any roar of the crowds that had once filled it. Odoacer ruled from Ravenna, and Rome had become a shadow, no longer a capital, merely a memory. But life went on. Gaius's bakery survived, though the city shrank around it. He no longer used the old mills. Their wheels had broken and never been repaired. Instead, he ground grain by hand, as his ancestors had in the countryside centuries before. The church had become the city's new backbone. Its bishops organized charity, repaired roads, and offered order in a world that no longer had emperors. Crosses now gleamed where once stood the statues of Mars and Jupiter. The transformation was slow but total. Gaius married Lucia, a woman who sold oil and herbs in the market. Together they raised a son, Marcus. To the boy, the empire was only a story, a bedtime legend told by men too old to remember clearly. And perhaps that was what the Roman Empire had become. Not a reality, but a myth, one that still clung to the ruins like ivy to stone. By the year 526, Gaius was an old man. His hands shook as he kneaded dough, though his son and grandchildren now ran the bakery. Rome had changed utterly, yet life still pulsed within its walls. Odoacer was long dead, killed by Theodoric the Ostrogoth, whose rule brought a fragile peace. The new rulers were foreigners, yet they called themselves Romans, and they left the people to their faith. The aqueducts had failed entirely. Water came from wells or the river. Floods of the Tiber had left thick layers of silt, turning once paved roads into muddy tracks. Still, pilgrims came, drawn not by power but by holiness. The tombs of saints had replaced the temples of gods. Gaius himself had become a follower of Christ a few years earlier. He hoped Jupiter and Apollo were not angry with him for it. His grandson had been raised a Christian, and his son Marcus had converted years before Gaius had done so. Finally, to be closer to his family, Gaius joined the rapidly growing newer faith. His conversion was as much a matter of practicality and community as it was about doctrine, perhaps even more so. The Pantheon now served as a church. The Forum statues were headless, scavenged for marble. Gaius sometimes walked among the ruins, tracing his hand along the cold stone, remembering the crowds and the banners of his youth. Yet, he no longer mourned. He saw in the new Rome a strange endurance. The empire was gone, but the city had survived by becoming something new, a place of faith rather than conquest. In the stubborn persistence of its people, Rome remained eternal after all. This video is now in your past. We hope to see you here again in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.